again so much, Megan. It's so nice to be here with you today and to meet you and get to know you. And I think we should start with the news just in that you've been named Time's top 100 most influential people. So a hearty congratulations to you. How's it settling in?
A little bit surreal. I wish my family felt that I was more influential. They're probably not going to give me my credit. I'm one of the most influential people in the world right now. So no, it really is an honor. And to look at, some of the other women, people who I consider very influential, but also just, incredible heroes, frankly, in the country right now. The founders of Black Lives Matter specifically are on the front of the cover. It's just incredible. So to be any small part of that, and to be, positively influential in any way, shape, or form, much less recognized like this, is a real honor and a motivator to keep doing what I'm doing.
Well, you deserve it. You've been so influential. Let's start with how influential you've been on the soccer field. We all know that for years you have some majorly impressive results to show for it. 2 World Cup championships, an Olympic gold medal, and you're the 4th unaccompanied woman ever to be awarded Sports Illustrated Sports Person of the Year award. So it takes serious commitment and perseverance, not to mention true grit, to achieve what you've accomplished. And I'm a big fan of the whole concept of grit, having that passion and perseverance for a goal despite facing many obstacles and distractions. We know that you've recovered from 3 ACL injuries and then played some of your best games. So how do you keep yourself focused on your goals, not just on the soccer field, but also off the soccer field?
It's interesting. I think, grit and determination and perseverance, those are sort of, words that buzz around the sports world a lot. I think what actually is the key is being, a master of failing, just failing over and over and over again and keep going. Eventually, something good is going to come of it. But I think being in sports uniquely situates us to fail all of the time. We're failing every single day in practice. Very rarely do you actually feel like you've sort of accomplished your goal. I mean, you only get a World Cup every 4 years and an Olympic every 4 years, Olympic Games, or even just the games, in relative to the amount of practices that we have are few and far between. So just getting used to the idea and comfortable with failing and sort of embracing that process and continuing to get better, almost seeing every failure as a little mini victory in and of itself, of being able to persevere through that. And having a short memory, I think, which probably goes along with failure. I've had a number of obstacles in my career, whether it be injuries or losses or whatever it may be, and just kind of continuing to move forward. You can't change what happened in the past or change certain circumstances, but you can always, evaluate yourself honestly and continue to move forward and try to keep growing, not only in your sort of respective field or profession, but as a person as well.
Well, it sounds like you're very centered with that approach, and you found your true north, if I can call it that. Here at Elastic, we have our guiding principles we call our source code, and it's how we define what makes Elastic and what we strive to provide to all of our employees. One of these principles is one that we call As You Are, and it recognizes how we all come in different shapes with different interests and skills and how we need to celebrate it. And you've talked about how you present yourself with intention and you bring your best self to the field and to the things that you care about. So what do you think that's important, and how has it impacted the way that you approach obstacles that you face throughout life?
I would say that first of all, it is vitally important to know who you are as just yourself, sitting in front of a mirror and, the strengths that you have, the weaknesses that you have, and, just understanding and being okay with, the very real fact that I feel like every individual knows that nobody's perfect. And yet as a society, at times we put this sort of undue burden on people as if they can't make mistakes or everyone's perfect or whatever. So getting comfortable in that and in your own skin. And to me, authenticity is key. it doesn't mean that you have to be the loudest person in the room to be the most influential. It doesn't mean that the quiet one, it isn't influential or whatever. You just have to be yourself and bring your full self. And I think when people do that, the best parts of them come out. And whether you're, a boisterous person or a quiet person, or, your leadership style may be more in organizing than in being out front, people will follow people who know themselves. And like you mentioned, this sort of the North Star, to always have that within yourself so you don't get swayed back and forth. There's going to be a lot of, whether it's colleagues, or for me, it's, media or sponsors or coaches or teammates or whatever. A lot of people come and go, and a lot of people have, intentions of their own. Sometimes it's, mutually beneficial, sometimes not. But to kind of always stick to that sort of core principle for yourself, I think allows you to be a better leader for other people as well.
Well, I think you make a good point there, because we all know that you're a force to be reckoned with on the soccer field, but as you've discovered newfound fame off the soccer field, how do you do that? How do you deal with that newfound fame and stay centered?
Yeah. I'm very thankful that I'm a little bit older. I love that you use newfound fame. I was saying that a little bit after the World Cup, and I just thought it was the funniest thing, because clearly this is like new for me. I'm 35 years old, and in the latter stages of my career as opposed to the beginning. And I just kind of found it all amusing. I tried to soak it in as much as possible and sort of lap up every opportunity and experience and room that I was in, and the magazines and the awards and all. I mean, I found it kind of bizarre and amusing, and just tried to enjoy it and stay around the people that my family in particular, that find it their life's work to check me at all points. So this head can never get too big without a family member coming in and bringing me right back down. But just trying to enjoy it, I think, and also realizing I didn't get to this place by myself. I didn't build this platform. I didn't win the World Cup by myself. I'm not this sort of person with newfound fame all alone, and constantly throwing my ladders down to other people, or sharing the mic, or making sure that if I'm the one that has the mic, giving proper due and respect and all of that to the people that helped me get here, and will likely never be recognized for it.
Well, it's really nice to hear that you rely on your family and close friends to help keep you grounded. You've cultivated such an impressive platform and social influence, and so it's nice to see that you've got a sounding board of those close circle of friends and family to help you with that. And so to that end, how do you manage the pressures of always being in the eyes of the public, ensuring that you're using your platform for good, but while staying grounded? Is it back to family and friends, or how do you manage that?
I mean, I think it always starts with the people closest around me first. But I also think, going back to having that sort of North Star and knowing what you believe in, I am very, open and willing, and like to speak about a lot of things. And I rely on my gut feeling a lot, which is not just like some random thing. I feel like I cultivate that. I educate myself. I stay plugged into the news and what's happening around the world. And I just sort of feel like it is my responsibility, because I have this platform. I've been, partially responsible for building it, but only partially. And there's a lot of other people in this world that came before me, centuries before me, that came decades before me, that were on the team before me, just in general, that I have a lot to thank for. So I look at it as a responsibility and an opportunity to continue the things, continue talking about things that I care about, and, that clearly matter in the country at this time.
Well, and speaking about responsibility, there's a phrase associated with Spider-Man that you're probably familiar with, the Peter Parker principle. With great power comes great responsibility. And knowing that you're the co-captain alongside Carly Lloyd and Alex Morgan of the U.S. national women's soccer team, and the public face of much social activism, what makes a good leader, and how do you step up to the plate every day to not only lead and inspire your teammates, but people everywhere?
I think being humble is the very first one. For me, of course, if you know you're the kind of person that's like me, you're probably not going to be the best leader. So being humble in that, but I think also stepping into that role with boldness and understanding that people do look to me. I am one of the older players on the team. I'm one of the more influential players on the team. I'm someone who is out in the media a lot and speaks about a lot of things. So understanding that comes with a weight to it, but it's also a privilege to have that. And so, trying to treat that with respect and make sure that I'm continuing to be bold. And then I think with leadership, I have found that I don't really have one specific style of leadership or whatever. I'm like, it depends on who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to a really young player who I know is a little insecure or unsure of their position or going through a rough patch, I'm not going to like get on them. If it's someone a little older who's, needs a little bit of some tough love, I can do that as well. And so I try to meet people where they are and give them what they need, because we're all different. We all have different personalities. It makes no sense to me to treat every single person the same, unless we're talking about respect and, sort of meeting people where they are. So I think that's the biggest thing, especially on a team full of, literally world-class athletes, world-class people, very confident, very driven, very motivated women. It doesn't really take a lot to lead them, I don't think. But just more so putting everyone in a position and trying to put myself in a position to, extract the very unique talents that we all have.
Yeah, I think that's really nice to hear that you recognize that to be a good leader, you need to recognize what's motivating to the individual versus just treating everybody the same way and peanut buttering the approach, if you will, across the teams. That stands out. And so, I mean, you've set a real example for, just how to lead the teams, but also then off the field lead the people, if you will. So I want to talk about some of the work that you've been doing around social injustice and how it's really risen to the forefront right now. So I've seen you talk about this concept of intersectionality a lot recently, and I'd love for you to explain to our viewers what it is and why it's important to understand.
Intersectionality is a term coined by Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, which essentially aims to address the intersections of different, not minority groups, but for example, I'm losing my words right here. But if you're Black and you're a woman, so those are sort of 2 points where you face, maybe discrimination, or you're a minority in some point. If you're a gay Black woman, for myself, while I have a tremendous amount of privilege being a white woman, I'm also a woman, which comes with not as much privilege, and I'm gay. So that's kind of another thing. So I think of it like, how many things are we carrying at once? And I think where intersectionality becomes most important, especially in social movements and with leadership movements, is, take the feminist movement, for example. I think the feminist movement has been traditionally kind of, led by white women and dominated by white women. So then when we get to issues where, maybe Black women are left out or gay Black women are left out, we can kind of understand why. They're sort of only looking at it from the one perspective that they have, where they're feeling discriminated against, which is being a woman. And so when it comes to social movements and leadership, it's really important that we are leaning on very heavily and listening to the most intersectional groups. I think if we listen to those voices, really no one is going to be left out. And so for me, I only learned this term maybe 4 years ago or something. Someone that I work with, who's a mentor of mine, who we work together full time now, kind of introduced this idea to me, and it totally blew my mind to think of all of the different ways, discrimination can intersect with one individual person in all of these different ways, and how that impacts us in society. I think and you're seeing it in this moment. I mean, the Black Lives Matter movement is a perfect example, started by 3 Black women. I know at least one of, I think 2 of which are gay Black women. And so understanding that they're not only going to think about women, they're not only going to think about people of color or Black people or Indigenous people, and not only going to think about the LGBT community. That gets a much broader, sense of the movement and where the needs lie.
Yeah, it's definitely a multifaceted movement, right? As you've explained. And it's a complex time right now in the world that we're all experiencing. It seems, threefold. So, and I know you've done so much work for the LGBTQ community, and I want to thank you for that. Can you share a little bit for our viewers today? What was it like growing up and as you became a professional athlete?
Yeah. It's funny. I didn't really figure out I was gay until college. And then immediately I looked back over my whole life and I was like, well, this makes a lot of sense. And someone in my family should have told me this was really obvious. I still joke with them about that. But I didn't grow up in an area that talked about being gay. There wasn't a lot of gay people. It's a smaller town, rural town in Northern California. I didn't really have the language for it. It was kind of like something that just we didn't really talk about. It was sort of it was obviously around. Looking back on my life, I see a number of areas where there were gay people or things were happening that I now have the language for, but I just didn't really have the language for it then, or the understanding. And basically, as soon as I got to college, I went to college in Portland, Oregon. A whole new world opened up for me in many different ways. And I feel really fortunate that I personally didn't struggle that much with coming out. I saw it as an amazing thing. I was like, oh, this is like the sort of missing puzzle piece to myself and my identity and confidence, and felt really good about it right away. And my family was supportive. My twin sister is gay as well. So, we shared that. But, I understood kind of immediately what so many people go through, just the
Right.
personal struggle, the feeling of being an outcast in society, or maybe your family doesn't support it. And then obviously the subsequent, struggles that we've had as a society. I think people forget that 5 years ago was when we passed federal marriage, just 5 years. Yes, the movement has sort of been, growing in popularity and acceptability for many years, but it's 5 years past. This is 2015. So I think we still have so much more to go. We have so much ground still to cover, but we're certainly on the right path, I think.
Right, totally. And I think you've touched on it a bit, but how did you own who you are, and what advice do you have for others so that they can follow suit? Because I think there's a lot there that you probably went through that's maybe not obvious to people.
Mm-hmm. Again, I think just being authentic in who you are, I think is really important. And that can be very much easier said than done. I guess I would just say personally to all of these people, you are exactly how you are supposed to be, and you're beautiful, and you deserve a life full of, love and happiness and full humanity and dignity. Of course. I sort of took the approach, like, if you don't like it, whatever, you're not going to be in my life anyways. And I made that very abundantly clear to everyone living in my life. I think if you're struggling, reach out. There are so many, groups or hotlines or advocacy groups and, organizations doing incredible work that provide so much support. So I would seek other people out. I think it's really important to have that community and that sort of shared experience with things. And just know that you're beautiful exactly the way that you are.
That's so nice. You could fit right on in with us elasticians, Megan. A lot of what you've touched on is right at the center of our core principles. So I just love it. You keep hammering on that, and I was like, yes, Megan could be an elastician for sure. So okay, let's talk about another meaty topic. Let's talk about equal pay. So this is a topic clearly near and dear to both you and me. We take fair pay very seriously here at Elastic. In fact, we recently did a pay gap analysis. I'm proud to say that there were no significant gaps between the men and women in similar roles across the company. But that doesn't mean that's the same way everywhere. And I know that that you've been involved in speaking out about this, and I was just wondering if you could comment on how has the lawsuit against the U.S. Soccer Federation opened your eyes to the systemic issues that we face in the workplace, and how will you, as well as your teammates, continue to fight for that equality?
Well, I think what it's, if there's one thing that's made me realize is how difficult it is not only to understand for yourself that there's pay equity issues happening. And I think, obviously in the passing of the great Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the famous Ledbetter case, with the statute of limitations, like how could the statute be such that it runs out before you even know that it happened, if it happens retroactively? Just how difficult it is. Obviously, it's not something that the senior managers or the executives go around being like, you're underpaid, you're underpaid, you're underpaid because you're a woman. It's something that they want to hide purposely, because it's illegal and because they know it's wrong. So first of all, figuring out exactly and finding the evidence and sort of the hard evidence needed. And then the continuing sentiment in the country, and as we've seen across the courts in this country, in not bringing those cases. And I think we have some legislature, the Obama administration signed in the Ledbetter Act, I believe it's called, but it doesn't go nearly far enough. None of the legislature does. So that's something that's very difficult. And we're a group of, just to speak frankly, like really famous, very successful people who can get any media outlet at any time to talk to us whenever. We can be on TV, we can be on Good Morning America, we can be the New York Times, we can be the Washington Post. Not everybody has that ability, not even close. Also, we have the unique ability of being on a team together where we can all gain confidence and share experiences, not only with the women on our team now, I think there's 28 plaintiffs, but with all of the women that came before us. And so we have this sort of long history. Oftentimes women who, especially if you are in a senior leadership position, are often alone or one of very few women in that position. And of course, if you're lower down on the totem pole, you really have no power. And the people above you have so much power and wield that power against you in such a strong way. And you might be relying on that check every 2 weeks. You might not have the ability to speak up or have the security to speak up. So just how pervasive I think it really is, and how, time and again, I think people, oftentimes men, fail to understand the pervasive nature with which how this can happen. One of my friends explained it to me that, when we go in to negotiate our CBA, we start in the parking lot and the men's team is starting in the conference room where the other lawyers are. And it's just, that's exactly it. You start at such a disadvantage, under such pressure. All of the information obviously is not shared with you all the time. You don't have all the facts. And so it can be really difficult to try to sift through all that's happening and continue to find your voice and find that bravery and that strength that it takes. But I hope it's changing. I hope that with our case and so many others, the work that Time's Up is doing is amazing as well. Hopefully we can sort of all snowball off each other. I think that's one thing that our team is really proud of. Of course, we're bringing this case personally and it affects us personally. And we hope to be successful in our case and, get the verdict that we want. But we hope that this is something so much bigger in the country that other women can take confidence from and be emboldened by, and people sort of take notice, and this can be kind of a landmark case for everyone.
Well, we're lucky that you all are shining a spotlight on this. We do see, while it may not feel like a lot of progress is being made, we feel like progress is being made, and it's I think of it as in the context of our principles that I've mentioned a couple of times. Another one of our source code principles here at Elastic is called progress, simple perfection. And it's tied to this notion that small change equals big change. And I feel like this is what you and your teammates are onto. And so you shared with people that people can help create big change through these small actions. So what are some examples of that, and how can people watching today take steps towards that action? Because you mentioned that not everybody's voices are equal. So what are some things that you could recommend to everybody watching today around how they can affect change?
I mean, the first, easiest, most vital thing that you can do is vote. So many of the positions that enact these laws or uphold the legislature are elected officials. And so if you're electing people who do not have your best interests at hand, they will they will probably not side with you. That's the first most important thing. Everybody who has the ability to get out and vote and to register should absolutely do that, especially coming up to such a consequential election for the presidency as we have this year in 2020. In a workplace, I would say talk to the other women and talk to your male allies and try to constantly gain as much information, get the lay of the land, and put pressure, and just make sure, if you can put pressure. Obviously, there's retribution in some situations, but to build those sort of alliances and coalitions, and if the necessary environment is not set from the top, try to at least do that in any way that you can around you. And just to continue to speak about it too. I think that's really important, something that gets lost a little bit. Talking with your family, bringing up issues of equal pay in whatever way that you can. I think there's a lot of ways that, that can be brought into the conversation, and sort of normalizing that idea, normalizing talking about it, I think is really important. And just continuing to tell people that it's, all the research is there. It is proven. It is just good for business. It's better for business when you pay men and women equally. It is better for business. It is better for the economy when women are paid equally. We know women, first of all, are half of the population. And so if you're, serially underpaying half of the population, that's a lot less money that's going to be pumped back into the economy. So on all fronts, it's just, if we need a financial motivator, it's just good for the economy.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And I mean, you've clearly proven that you're a galvanizing force for social change, Megan. And we know that you've got an upcoming book called One Life coming out soon, where it urges all of us to take actions, big and small, which I think we were just talking about, to continue to fight for justice and equality. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about what to expect in your upcoming book, and what do we have to look forward to?
Yes, my book's coming out. It's called One Life, which is based on a poem that's basically what will you do with this one wild and precious life that you have? I think I try to live my life that way. I believe that we all have a responsibility to make the world a better place in whatever way that we can. The book kind of goes through, it's a memoir, so it goes through, my life, but hopefully it gets a little bit more of a deep dive than what people think or they know about me already. It goes into my family, and I think my family has been so huge and influential in just shaping me who I was. And interestingly, I think it's funny because my family is more conservative, and I'm just like a flaming liberal. And I'm like, are you guys sure that you're conservative? Like, I'm not totally positive, because I feel like the way that we grew up was sort of based on a lot of liberal ideas. So I kind of talk about that through the book. I didn't really have the language to say liberal or otherwise, or progressive or otherwise, but I go into that a little bit. Go into my career and, just sort of the arc of it. Kneeling is a big focus in the book, and just how that changed the course of, my life forever for the better. And I feel like it was just such an influential moment, and, to go on 4 years later and to see the movement that Colin really sparked in so many ways. And, women who started Black Lives Matter and the women of the WNBA were actually protesting before Colin. So it kind of goes into that, and quite a bit of the backlash that I received from many people, my employer being one of them. I hope it's just a little bit of a deeper dive into who I am, but also kind of a rallying cry and a motivator to just let people know that you are not inconsequential. One voice is never inconsequential. I think every person, like I said, I feel like every person has a responsibility, but they also have the power. We see everyday people, all the time standing up just for what is right, and making the most out of their voice and their life and the things that they believe in. And I just don't think that can be understated. And we're seeing in a time right now where people are, protesting in the streets throughout the summer, demanding change. And frankly, I think demanding better. I think we deserve better in America. I think that's like something that's so frustrating, or had been so frustrating for me during, especially right after the kneeling, like how dare I criticize our great nation. And I feel like as an athlete, and I can, consider myself a good athlete, an elite athlete. I play in one of the best teams. As if I would ever just like sit back on my laurels and never criticize myself and try to get better and constantly look for ways to continue to grow and be better. And I encourage everyone else to do that as well. I think it was James Baldwin who said, "I love my country so much that I insist on criticizing her constantly." So I think there's nothing more patriotic than trying to make this great country better.
Well, that's perfect. And what great timing on your book. I feel like we got a little bit of a teaser in today's discussion. So thank you for entertaining us. And I think there's a lot we can learn from one of the most influential people in the world these days. So Megan, thank you so much.